17 minutes?
Yeah.
That's perfect. Go. Thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Angel Monsalve. I'm with the University of Idaho with the Center for Eco-Hydraulics Research. And today I'm going to talk about a couple of new components that I developed and other friends. We developed especially for modeling river hydraulics and morphodynamics. I'm going to present a couple of applications, and it's really nice to see a lot of faces and people that I met just virtually before. So everything myself that it started with land lab related stuff. It started on Espen. It is a great experience. So if you can, if you can apply, I will definitely recommend it. Thanks, Greg, for the invitation, and let's do it. So this is a little bit unfair. I don't think I can make a better introduction to LandLab than one Greg did. I'm not a part of the developer teams, but I do feel like one of the developer teams because I've been really interested in the capabilities that LandLab offered and all the potential and all the really interesting things that we can do with LandLab. So what I want to say, though, it's that LandLab is not a software. It is a toolkit, and that is really important because it allows us or it gives us a platform to develop a variety of very different components and different models that can be coupled together. So again, this is not fair. Greg did a better job than myself. But I really wanted to highlight the classical papers in LandLab, especially the one that started everything. Well, the second version in this case, the short communication of LandLab 2.0, the overland flow that for me was the starting point, and how the LandLab peer-reviewed publications has been steadily increasing in time, reaching a peak last year, and it keeps growing. So that is really interesting and also motivates to myself and other people to continue developing studies, components, and other applications. So why I was motivated by LandLab as a modeler, the way that LandLab can integrate your numerical equations into the system, it's really easy to handle, to code it, and it basically offers you the grid, and that's the most important part, at least from my point of view. The grid has all the information and all the capabilities and all the operations that I need as the point of view of a modeler. So we have this information that goes in the nodes and the links, everything is included, everything talks to each other. So that makes the way in which we develop codes very easy. So for example, I have a variable like an elevation at a node. That node connects to other nodes by the links, so I can get a slope. Then if I have any flux that I need to calculate or predict, I'll have a function that will get the flux in those nodes, on those links, and then I can get anything like, well, fluxes, gradients, everything that I need as a modeler. And the way that also that I can go through this path of calculating, it's pretty easy or standard on the LandLab in the LandLab way of doing things, which makes it very attractive. So what I want to introduce today is a family of components that I call together river dynamics, and it's based off 3 models plus another one that is coming soon. And it is a river flow dynamics, river bed dynamics, and river temperature dynamics. So these 3 models plus the one that I'm developing now that is river solute transport dynamics are a family built on, of course, LandLab. And river flow dynamics is a semi-implicit or semi-Lagrangian shallow water equation solver. And I have a new flavor now that it's called River Flow Dynamics HLLC. I'm going to talk about those details later. And it's also a shallow water equation solver. So this family of or components, they can talk to each other. That's the base of LandLab. And for example, they can exchange information about water depth, velocities on both directions, so vertical and, horizontal and vertical, bed elevations, roughness, and many other parameters. And can talk to river bed dynamics, which will use the Exner equation. It can use multi-fraction transport, and it can play with the surface and subsurface of the local river. And it can also, river flow dynamics and river bed dynamics can talk to river temperature dynamics, which is a thermal and heat transport that I'll show what it's all about in that case. So everything here, all these three independent components are not really that independent if we can see them as integrated by the LandLab grid, in which we have, again, these nodes, patch, cells, fields, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, we have all these different components built in one grid that controls them all. So that, when I was preparing my presentation, that was similar to a catchy phrase that from a movie. And yesterday, when I was coming in my flight, I couldn't help myself, so I had to do this. And so I see LandLab as a one grid to rule them all. We can build all these different processes because the grid will be always available and controlling everything. So the first component on river dynamics is the river flow dynamics. This is the part where the hydraulics plays a role. And there are two flavors. The one that is published, river flow dynamics, which works better under smooth subcritical conditions. So this is better for relatively low slopes, estuaries, or rivers that are relatively large. It allows for very large delta T. So in this case, for river dynamics, a large delta T is on the order of 5 seconds. So we are on the hydraulics part here, not in the geological scales. But that is a relatively large delta T, 10 seconds, maybe that is too much. And there is a new flavor coming now that it's called HLLC that accounts for shocks. Can be used for subcritical, critical, and supercritical flows, and has a better front capture, so wet and drying process. And why do we need that? It's because sometimes we need to work on smaller scales. So usually, well, not usually, all these components and riverbed dynamics are, river dynamics are thought for a watershed scale, not for small scale. But in my case, my research drives me to also apply them in smaller scale. And that's why I needed this, variation. So river flow dynamics was published last year. It is a semi-implicit, semi-Lagrangian flow model. I'm not going to go into the numerical details, but the nice thing about that one, it is allows for a larger timestamp because it is relaxed CFL condition. So basically, it runs on larger or smooth processes. Then I have this new version, HLLC, which is required for, in my case, river mountains, that the transitions are really sharper. It is really fast. Sometimes you have supercritical, subcritical, critical in the same place, and it needed these capabilities. So I'm going to show you some results. Probably you have seen this topography before if you have done the FastMech tutorials. I used the same data set to test this one, and this is the result of HLLC. So you can see it works pretty well. There is this is the standard configuration, so nothing really special. There are some tricks to make it faster, slower, more accurate, less accurate. There are plenty of configurations that can help you in setting up your case. But what I want to show you now, so this is a rich scale, and in more smaller scale, this is where it's very powerful. So you can see how it captures all the shocks that is demanding from a computational point of view. So LandLab can do this, and that's what I think it's really interesting. Also, the other thing is usually we see LandLab as a collection of notebooks, which I think are great, really good educational tools. But if you can post-process this, they also look pretty beautiful. And that's a little bit more convincing sometimes, especially to engage with students. For me, the notebooks are already perfect, but some people are more visual, and this helps a lot. Then the second component that I want to introduce is riverbed dynamics. Also was published last year, and it's a bed evolution model for rivers. It has a lot of, in this case, 6 bed load equations implemented. It uses the Exner equation for mass balance. It has capabilities to track the surface and subsurface grain size distribution, the evolution, bed elevation, and some other capabilities. I don't have the time to explain all of them, but it's also applicable for watershed scale, relatively small scales, and the new updated version that I'm working on, and actually I finished it a couple of weeks ago, it has some applications or some improvements over the published version. And I also used the morphodynamic factor so that it could speed up simulations that are in the order of years. With the previous version, that could be done, but it takes forever. And it has a adaptive time step for stability. It's not a real issue, but you have to make a couple of attempts for riverbed dynamics to work well under certain circumstances. Now the software, the component itself takes care of that. It has a slope limiter that is not actually working on the slope of the sediment, but it's more like a gravitational effect that it will not allow it to grow in vertical walls, for example. And it can be coupled with temperature. I'm going to talk about the temperature thing in a couple of slides. For all of you that knows my work, you may know that I'm a little bit obsessed about these little rocks. These are boulders. For me, are boulders. For everybody else, could be concrete hemispheres. For me, are the perfect representation in a lab of a boulder. And one of the studies that we did many years ago now, it was how the sediment patches evolve in time under the influence of these boulders. Again, I don't have time for the details, but you can see in these images that there is some sort of differences in the bed elevation around this boulder. So you can see in the image on your left, there is a lot of deposition. There's some scour around. I'm going to show you that now. So is this a... Okay, so I'm going to play this again just in case. So here it's a test that tests the limits where these 2 components can be applied. This is flow around an hemisphere that is barely submerged. So we have skimming flows on top of it. And it is the canonical case where everything is stressed to the maximum. So we have a lot of very sharp gradients in water surface elevation, velocities going around, the shear stress is crazy too. So this serves as an example of how good can this application be. So what I want you to focus in this case is take a look on the patterns of the changes in bed surface elevation. So we have a lot of deposition in front, scour in the sides, really nothing going on, not much. On the downstream region, and again from a side view, we have the accumulation, changes in or constant and unsteadiness in the flow bed. Excuse me, in the flow hydraulics. I don't know if I can play that again. Doesn't allow me. It doesn't want to play again. Okay, again, for some people, it may be more attractive to see this in 3D. So I made that. This is exactly the same data, nothing different. This hemisphere is about 15 centimeters in diameter, almost 8 centimeters in height. The section that I'm showing is about 1 meter by 1 meter. Of course, the scale is, or the actual experiment is a little bit longer, but this helps. So I thought to do this case because it's really challenging the numericals in those two components in LandLab. And the experiments, I will ask you to, so this is, I'm losing the pointer. So this is one of the experiments that we did, but I would like you to focus on this one. It's a zoom of the actual measurement. So the gray line is the initial bed, the dark line is the final bed. So you'll see that this behavior that we saw before, it is actually very similar. Oh, now it's back. Okay, well, sorry about that. It's very similar to what we did. Now, it's not perfectly equal, but it is a really good representation, thinking that this LandLab component is two-dimensional model, and the flow around an hemisphere partially submerged, it is very 3D. Then the last case is the river temperature dynamics, and the river temperature dynamics is a thermal component. And this was inspired by this story that I learned in one of my lectures when I was doing my PhD. I heard, I don't remember who was, but they told a story about how different the bed load, the sediment transport can be depending on the season. So there are we have this two study by Lane in 49 and by Colby in 76, and they showed that the sediment transport can be different for the same conditions between summer and winter. So if we analyze this theoretically, we can see, this is the Shields curve, we can see that the temperature of the water can modify the critical shear stress, okay? And it's significant, especially for small particles. When you are in the range of larger particles, basically it will do nothing. But it can change, and this is interesting, it can change the behavior, and there are zones where it's very significant. I don't have time to go to the details, but I would like to show you. This is an example of how the animations are not running well. Get stuck. Okay, eventually you will see. I don't know what happened, but eventually you will see that the critical shear stress varies a lot depending on the temperature. And that is one of the reasons why on bed load, we can have different estimates depending on the temperature, not only the season, but the temperature. That is Okay. And a field application at watershed scale. This is a study developed by Sam Anderson, one of Nicole's students. And what I want to highlight here is that we apply this riverbed dynamics model to a watershed, or actually two locations in New Mexico. And long story short, we wanted to see what are the sizes of the grains that will move in different storms. So again, I don't have the time to explain all the details, but what we could see in this case is the location. So how upstream, how far downstream we are. In this case, the more downstream we are from in the watershed, the larger the grain size that we can move. So basically, take a look here. That means that for low duration intensities of rainfall intensities, so that will be a high intensity, the larger grains are more likely to move. I will recommend you to read Sam's work for this. I'm over the time for for like 3 minutes. So that is what I wanted to present today.
Thank you.